Most of us think of gluten as this, the staff of life, bread, wheat, the staff of life. Most of us don't realize that the wheat in particular that we're eating today is completely different to the wheat of 50 years ago. So it's what you're talking about. We're not, if we were eating heritage wheat or wheat that was passed on for generations, that would be different. But we're actually eating, it's not, theoretically it's not genetically modified because it's hybridized. They haven't spliced the gene and put it into the new wheat, but we're eating something that's completely foreign to our system. And now we know, or most people don't know, unfortunately, and hopefully after tonight you're going to know, that the wheat, including whole wheat that you're eating, is incredibly unhealthy. For instance, even if you look at the new wheat plant, it's now called dwarf wheat. It's much smaller than the old wheat because they wanted to increase the yield and make it more sturdy. It has an incredibly high concentration of amylopectin A, which is a very high glycemic starch. So 2 slices of whole wheat bread is the equivalent of having 2 teaspoons of sugar. So it's actually healthier to have a candy bar than it is to have a whole wheat sandwich. Now, I know, there's some health websites here who espouse a vegetarian or a plant-based diet or whatever, but if you're espousing a diet eating altered grains which are making us fat, which is causing an untold amount of chronic suffering, and is actually addictive. Interestingly enough, same as sugar, when you eat some wheat, including whole wheat, it gets broken down to polypeptides, which then go into the bloodstream and bind to opiate receptors in the brain. So they bind to the heroin receptors in your brain. So they're like a drug. And they've done studies in animals when they've given people who've eaten wheat naltrexone, which is what they give to heroin addicts, and it actually takes away their craving and their addiction. So not only is the food industry putting all this crap into your food and going by healthy, I mean, you get organic whole wheat, fair trade organic whole wheat, thinking you're eating something healthy, but you're eating something that's really, really unhealthy for you. You might as well eat sugar. So apart from this high sugar content and this addictive quality, it also is incredibly pro-inflammatory. So it's creating all this inflammation in your body and these autoimmune diseases. So a lot of the epidemics of autoimmune diseases, from thyroid disease to rheumatoid arthritis, gluten is probably a factor. There's epidemics of inflammation, heart disease, one of them, obesity, diabetes. Gluten is a major factor in this. So here we have a food that most people think is healthy, whole wheat. Most people don't know that it's been altered. And it's now even whole wheat in a lot of processed foods. So if there's one thing you take from tonight is whole wheat bread is not healthy for you. Whole wheat is now altered. Please, folks, rather have meat if you're going to have grass-fed meat. Eating a vegetarian diet is not necessarily healthy if you're eating wheat. So I know you're a big proponent of this as well. And can you tell us your involvement in?
Right. Well, I think people also don't realize that when you, how many times a day that you're eating wheat or wheat derivatives. So, I invite you to go to your pantries. You say pantry, I larder.
I have the Brit thing too.
Wherever you keep your food. Storage. And take a look at all your food products, all your dried foodstuffs, and just take a look and see how many products that you've got in there have got wheat as a filler, right? And you'll be amazed at how many times a day that you're eating wheat unbeknowingly. Also, your beer. Anyone beer drinkers here? Stick your hand up if you drink beer. Okay. Do you know that there's a lot of gluten in beer? It's full of it.
And also, if you don't see wheat on the label and you see hydrolyzed vegetable protein or something, I mean, they have all these different names that they now put on, which is actually wheat. They have all these different natural flavors, often have wheat. Most sauces, soy sauce, salad dressings, there's wheat everywhere.
Yeah.
Jane, you're laughing. So it's a huge problem.
Well, I learned the hard way by becoming wheat intolerant it was so bad. And I had this when I was in my 20s. I just completely, you know, how pasta suddenly exploded in the UK, I'm sure in the US, and we all sort of thought, you know, pasta was the best thing that we'd ever tasted. And I didn't travel as a child, so I never knew what pasta was. But in my 20s, this revelation how delicious pasta. And so I ate it twice a day, every day, along with my bread. And what I started noticing was I would have a taste of it, and my belly would start to rise up like, you know, bread in an oven. And then I was crippled with constipation, and I just felt absolutely awful, tired and brain fogged and depressed. And I sort of did my homework of what could it be. And obviously it came out to be the wheat. So I took myself off it. It was a terrible sort of like week-long withdrawal where I practically strangled everybody I met. Because you feel so awful when you're withdrawing. It's like you're on a drug. And then I went off it for 5 years, and I realized that my life had turned around not having gluten for 5 years. And what I have now in my life, I partnered with a couple, and we own a 50% share in a dedicated gluten-free facility, and we make gluten-free products for celiacs, for children in schools in my region where my farm is in Hampshire. They're starting to have, and it's very hard to get through to school authorities really, you know, how to be sensible. Poor Jamie Oliver tried to do it here without a huge success, but to try to sort of like push through that, you know, the accumulation of wheat every day for kids, pizzas and pastas and bread, is actually is going to set up a lifelong of problems for their health. And we see so many children now with the aging diabetes 2, and this is really from this fast food mentality of food they simply cannot digest because it's over-processed. So it's a very exciting journey that I'm on with my partners.